Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us now in this new year of 2024. Let's jump right back into it in this new year. Fight reviews this past Saturday, the 6th of January, from the Virgin Hotels and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada on DAZN, a Golden Boy Promotions card on DAZN. The main event, Virgil Ortiz Jr. returns to the ring after, maybe 2 years, 18 to 24 months. Been a long time. He's been trying to get back after battling some medical health scares and all that in the last two fights, which were canceled pretty much, I think, during the fight week, which is unfortunate. But now he's back in a new weight. This was at a catch weight at 156 pounds, but Ortiz did say after the fight and before that he'll campaign at 154, at least for the time being. It was an early night for Ortiz and everybody involved, as he got the first round stoppage over Ortiz-Lawson, who got the fourth loss of his career. Obviously, there's the story that's dominating this event and this main event, and Virgil Ortiz's return after such a long, I'm not going to say layoff, but, such a long absence from the ring. Is not how Ortiz looked in that first round. It's everything that's dominating the news cycle in boxing, at least at this moment, as of this recording, is the stoppage that was done in this fight, in this first round, by veteran referee at the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Tony Weeks. And if you remember, he was also the referee who stopped the Rolly Romero and the Barboza fight. He was the same referee who stopped that. There's nothing really to analyze in terms of Ortiz's performance. I mean, he looked good. He looked comfortable. Obviously, he made the weight. It was at a catch weight of 156. He looked strong. He looked a lot healthier. He said after the fight that he pretty much implied that he didn't want the fight to be stopped. He wanted to get some rounds in, but, unfortunately it was stopped, and it didn't look like it should have been stopped just based on watching the fight and getting all those camera angles. But like I said, the big controversy right now and the news that's dominating this entire event and the entire sport of boxing at the moment is the stoppage by referee Tony Weeks. So Mike, I'll go to you first. Give me your reaction to this whole situation.
Well, the stoppage seemed very premature. Virgil kind of backed him up a bit with a heavy jab, but then a few shots that he threw missed. Lawson was taking a few and wasn't really throwing back. So you could kind of see why, Tony Weeks was, kind of close and looking to, maybe jump in and stop it, but we're there to see a fight. So, at least give us something, right? It was a big fight. Lawson, wasn't taking too much damage. And, straight away, he looked obviously, super annoyed. So did his corner, like even Virgil's corner. They wanted to try and get some rounds in after the long layoff, like you said. And, I think, unfortunately, it was just a bad mistake. And I know that Tony Weeks was involved in the fight where the gentleman with the long last name, Yalasada, I can't remember his name now. He got injured this year, so maybe that's put him. He's starting to second guess himself because he's had a fighter, get injured during one of his fights. Maybe that's made him jump in a little bit more quicker than he should because he's kind of blaming himself for the fact that he got injured or something like that. Obviously we don't know. We're not Tony Weeks, but we could only guess. But he definitely needs to. Look at himself, look at his performances, maybe take a step back for a bit, have a little bit of a break, a refresh, to refresh, get away from the sport for a little bit, because That's two very big fights that he's been involved in where it affects the fighters' livelihoods. You know, sometimes you'll go from earning these huge checks to earning, 10 grand, something like that. Because, these mistakes are costing people because, boxing is not like MMA where, it's like 12 and 12, 12 and 12, and you gradually move up. 1 minute you're earning 500,000, the next minute you're earning 50 grand because, you're not in the title fight or something like that. So it needs to be looked at. It really does need to be looked at because it's affecting the boxers, dramatically. I still think Virgil would have won anyway, but in the one before, Barroso and Rowley ended up coming away with the world championship, where Barroso should have been probably walking away with the world championship that night. So that's how much it's affecting, Barroso, because that's life-changing money for someone, especially of his age. Something needs to be done. Hopefully Nevada are very open and clear and concise and tell us exactly what's going to be done, because I'm sure we'd all like to know whether it's, retraining, whether it's some smaller fights for a little while, or, whether Tony Weeks decides to step away from the sport himself because he's probably on the latter end of his career, right? So, yeah, hopefully they don't just go quiet. Hopefully we get to know what is going to happen.
You also got to look at it from the perspective that Kenny Bayless, who was also one of the veteran referees in the world, but obviously for Nevada, just recently retired within the last week or two. And if Tony Weeks leaves, that's two of the most veteran referees in the sport today who are gone within, 21 days of each other, or 30 days of each other. And there's not a lot of referees in the world if you think about it, especially a lot of ones that you can rely on to have that veteran presence and know what they're doing. That's why you get these referees from all over the world, especially ones from California and Nevada, who get these fights internationally, or in other states. Even though they referee in California, Nevada, and all that, they get paid and they get offered to do a fight in England, in New York, and Florida, because those commissions or those regulating bodies have, I guess, the wherewithal to realize, like, hey, this is a pretty significant fight for us in our state. We need somebody who's credible, a veteran presence. Let's just contract one of the guys from Nevada, California, which are usually the ones that they get, right? California and Nevada would likely have the most veteran referees and the most credible referees and experienced referees. But going back to this, like you said, I completely agree that maybe, with that fight that he refereed sometime last year with the gentleman who got obviously hurt, or suffered didn't he suffer what exactly happened? I just had a brain. What is it? What did the guy? Because I was reading about it earlier. Throughout this whole Tony Weeks stoppage situation, controversy, and all that.
It was David Morrell against Ados. I can't pronounce your boss.
It was a Morrell fight. That's right.
Yeah, and he ended up in a coma after the fight.
That's what it was. Yes, which is obviously very, very serious. It's the human element of it's the human element of sports. Since we're a sporting podcast and we're analyzing, reviewing, and talking about giving commentary to a sport, the human element, obviously, no human is perfect. They're not. Referees are always getting criticized and all that. And that's a very, very real possibility. Even though he is a veteran referee, you're right. Like that gentleman, that fighter who in the Morrell fight, who went into a coma after the fight, maybe weeks, I think I remember going back to boxing Twitter and boxing online forums and all that. He was getting criticized for it anyways. He's like, oh, he should have stopped the fight. People are always going to criticize. Like in this day and age, especially the last decade, where the internet has exploded with social media dominating a majority of the real estate online, people can put their opinions out there. They can put their commentary out there. They can put their, analysis out there and all that, in an instant. You get that instant gratification. You put it out there. And then if it gets enough traction, then the algorithm picks it up and it gets shared, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people see it. That's just the nature of the game. And, maybe Tony Weeks, even though he's a veteran, maybe he listened to it or he saw it and all that. And that brings me to my next issue here, or next, point I want to bring up, is that there's been an alleged, we say alleged because we've seen some, even though we've seen some reporters and some writers kind of say it is real. And it's, at this moment, as of this recording, we're not entirely sure. I never saw it on Facebook. I don't think you saw it. Some people said it was also posted on Instagram and stuff, but Tony Weeks had posted some type of statement on Facebook, which was the one that I think a lot of people saw that was shared, saying that Ortiz-Lawson was examined by 3 doctors prior to the fight with Vergil Ortiz. And the first 2 doctors found an aneurysm in his brain, or in his head, I guess, I'm assuming. And then the third doctor didn't find it and cleared him. So then he was cleared to fight. So they let him fight, supposedly. Tony Weeks, at least on that alleged post, that's what he said. And I mean, if you kind of look at it kind of a little bit more deep, in a more deeper manner, Tony Weeks is kind of saying like, hey, look, they cleared him to fight. The commission cleared him to fight. And I think he's allegedly implying, you tell me if you agree with this or not, Mike, he's allegedly implying that he had that in the back of his mind the entire time. I mean, it's reasonable, right? I mean, if that was a real statement, at least as of right now, we don't know. Seems like it is, but as of right now, we don't know. But if that was a real statement, that's real information. I mean, first off, he shouldn't have said anything. These referees, especially these veteran referees, they never come out and say anything. They never come out and say anything when they get criticized for these fights, for these events. They always stay quiet. They don't really give interviews. Some of them do, and some of them will talk about it, but they're professionals, And Tony Weeks, for some reason or another, I guess probably heard the criticism, and maybe it was getting to him, maybe because of this situation. So he felt the need to allegedly post this statement and pretty much say, hey, look, this was in the back of my mind. 2 out of 3 doctors said he had this. And then the third one said he didn't have it. So maybe Tony Weeks looked at it as a reasonable person would and be like, majority of the physicians that examined him said he had this. So democratic rule, right? Or democracy. And he's pretty much saying the Nevada State Athletic Commission kind of let him fight, or all the other parties let him fight. Maybe the promoters, or they were all aware of it. Who knows? I mean, if that statement is true, like I just said, Mike, is it reasonable? Is it reasonable for him to have that in the back of his mind?
Obviously, the major thing there is what you said about if that statement is true. If that statement is true, then he really shouldn't have been in the ring, right? If 2 out of 3 exams are saying you have an aneurysm, then, you shouldn't really be in there. And with, like you touched on before, some of the, California, Nevada, and probably New York have the most fights the year, probably have the best, strongest commissions in the US. And I would like to think that Nevada wouldn't put somebody in that sort of situation. You know what it is nowadays where, everything's about liability in the world, isn't it? So I don't know if Nevada would do that. But yeah, I mean, going off, like you said, if that statement is true that Tony Weeks said, then and he knew about that before going into the fight, then yeah, I guess most people, I think, would be looking at him and thinking, you know what, like I heard that his medical wasn't what it should have been. When he starts to take some blows, I'm going to stop this. But I'd like to think that he wrote that statement trying to cover his own ass and made that up for some wacky reason? Because
I mean, why would you make something like that up though?
Just to try and cover himself, like, hey, I did this because...
I know, but like you're right. But like, that's a very, very detailed explanation. And it's also, it's also medical information that federally in the United States, there's a federal law called HIPAA. There's an acronym about people's medical information, and he's pretty much disclosing medical information that happened to Lawson, which isn't his information. Like, that's not Tony. It didn't happen to Tony Weeks, So like, there's that concern. And I think didn't Chris Mannix I think Chris Mannix was able to talk to or got some type of word from Tony Weeks after the fight. In the DAZN broadcast, I'm pretty sure when I was watching it, that's what happened. And the DAZN commentary team had said that Tony Weeks had said that before he stopped it, he saw Lawson's eyes roll to the back of his head during the exchange, or when Ortiz was, going after him. And that was, I guess, the catalyst to stop the fight. Obviously we've seen some crazy stoppages, crazy decisions in boxing, and we're going to keep seeing them. There's a human element to boxing, at least with refereeing, especially refereeing, all that, and even judging, but I don't know. Do you think he's lying? Do you think he made up both things, saying, do you think it's a lie? I mean, that Lawson's eyes didn't roll back to the back of his head, and Weeks is just saying that, and that he also had 2 doctors out of 3 saying he had an aneurysm prior to the fight, and then the third one cleared him, so he was able to fight. I mean, I just don't understand why you would lie about that.
I think it's just one of those things where you've done wrong, and you try to cover yourself.
But to go to that extreme for a professional such as him, like that's what I'm trying to understand and wrap my head around.
A good example would be Wilder and Fury. So when he couldn't accept the loss, and it was to do with the suit, it was to do with he didn't have his hand in the glove properly. He was punching him, with that part of the glove, and I can't remember what else. All those wacky excuses that Wilder came out with.
I know, but that's like different though. The fighter personalities are a lot different from professional referees, especially the veteran, experienced ones, and boxing judges especially in California, which is the biggest state in the United States with the largest commission in the United States. Like, fighter personalities are fighter personalities. They could be way out there. They could be crazy. They can go one way or the other, just to try to, Money Mayweather and all that, just personalities, the behavior is a lot different. Referees, from what we've seen, are a lot more reserved, professional. Obviously, that's their job. Try to be as fair as possible and save the fighter, at least, from any further punishment that could seriously injure them. Like, I just don't. I can't understand it. I can't understand it. Like, so you think, Mike, that there's really if you had to put a percentage on it, that Tony Weeks is, both of these statements are untrue. That the doctors, 2 out of 3 doctors, found an aneurysm, and the third one cleared him, and that when he told the DAZN people, it was on the broadcast too, that Lawson's eyes had rolled to the back of his head during the exchange, and which caused him to stop the fight, caused Weeks to stop the fight. What do you think? Just speculating here. What's the percentage that those are untrue statements?
The first one, the doctor one, I would probably say a high percentage. I don't see.
Really? You really think so? See, I can't see it. I can't see why he would lie about that. I mean, I'm just based. I'm trying. I guess I give him a lot of credibility. That's what it is. Because they're referees. But I don't know. You could be right though. But I just don't see it.
just to save face, he's probably done so many big fights where everything's gone well for him. The fact that he's just done 2 huge clangers in the space of a few months, that he can't accept it, and he's looking for a way to kind of save himself, and he's gone down that path. And are we going to get the usual thing from that celebrities do, where we'll get a message tomorrow and he says, "Oh, just so you know, I was hacked."
Oh man, get out of here with that! If I swear to God, it's essentially the first week or two of the new year, and already so much has happened. And if that comes out and he says, "I was hacked," man, we still have 350 days left in the year. What else is going to happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what it is. I'm sure that you see people during hard times when they're under stress, they come out with some crazy stuff, and later they regret it. And I'm thinking that could be what's happened to him, unfortunately. But the fact that he did do that, he's going to be looking at least some time on the sidelines to accuse the commission that he works for of allowing a fighter to have a medical, fail it, so he has another one, fails it, so they give him a third one, and then he passes it, and then Nevada have said, "Okay, you can now fight." It's that doesn't look too good to do that for. Obviously, that's the commission. That's his home commission. That's where he does most of his fights.
Right.
It's going to be interesting, going forward, and to see what they do.
So Chris Mannix of DAZN and Sports Illustrated tweeted out right after this, not after the show, but right after this news broke. I guess he did some digging. He said that Golden Boy president Eric Gomez has denied to Sports Illustrated that pre-fight brain scans showed an aneurysm on Frederick Lawson, as referee Tony Weeks claimed on his Facebook page on Sunday. So Golden Boy is denying it. The president of Golden Boy, Eric Gomez, who's, I guess, essentially number 2 in the chain of command behind Oscar De La Hoya since Oscar's company. Golden Boy came out and denied it. And they came out with a statement even before Eric Gomez talked to Chris Mannix here, where they posted on their social channels saying that Frederick Lawson was cleared to fight. I guess they wanted to try to get ahead of this controversial situation. And now Golden Boy Promotions president Eric Gomez is saying, "Hey, there was no aneurysm from what we know." So according to them, there was nothing there. So this whole story is bizarre. This whole story is bizarre because it's not like I said, I guess I'm giving a lot of credibility to a professional referee such as Tony Weeks. If this was a younger referee or a referee who's not as experienced, not as known, we don't know too much about, there's a little bit more wiggle room there. Okay, well, we're not really that known. We don't know that we don't have too much knowledge on you as a referee, we don't have a lot of tape to study of past events, how you've judged certain aspects in fights. But Tony Weeks, that's not him. There's a long list of fights he's done for years. Experience. He's an experienced referee. He's a veteran. He's been in some of the most high-profile fights in years. And he's still doing it, obviously. And now with Kenny Bayless, like we just said a couple minutes ago, with him retiring, Tony Weeks is probably the guy in Vegas now, in the state of Nevada. So, that's why I said, you made the comparison to Wilder and after the Fury loss and other stuff. Fighter personalities, I go back to it. Fighter personalities are a lot different. And these referees, a lot of the time they stay quiet. They don't say anything. Even if they get a controversial, situation that arises because of their stoppage or whatever they did, I can't understand it. I can't understand it. If that's a real post that he posted, Tony Weeks posted and then deleted, saying that, and he's lying, I don't understand. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. This is one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen in boxing. It's one of the most bizarre situations I've ever seen in boxing because the main promoter of the fight, a major promoter in Golden Boy Promotions, is saying, "Hey, this wasn't there. There was no aneurysm. Like, we don't know about this unless it was hidden from them and they didn't know. I mean, who knows? But according to them, there was no aneurysms." And then Tony Weeks is saying the opposite. Like, who are we supposed to believe here? You know?
Well, another thing that makes me think
it's not like Rolly Romero's saying it. Like, Rolly Romero's the one that's like saying one or the other here. Like, there's Ryan Garcia or these fighters who, like, they say one thing and then they say another thing 5 minutes later, you know?
It's something else that makes me think that Tony Weeks might have, stretched the truth, shall we say, is if you were Frederick Lawson or you were part of his team, I don't know if any of his family are involved in his team as coach or second or, cutman. He's going into that fight as a huge underdog against someone as heavy-handed as Virgil Ortiz. If you had 2 brain scans that said you had an aneurysm, would you want to get in there with someone as heavy-handed as Virgil? Like, probably not. You'd think that his coaches, or somebody in his corner team would be like, hey, probably best that we don't fight today. 2 scans.
Ideally, yeah. But, like, what was the payday? Then you don't get the payday. And we've seen that in boxing where these fighters, look at Sergio Martinez. This one just popped into my head. Sergio Martinez, when he fought Miguel Cotto, and then I think he retired after, like, technically. That fight was supposed to be, like, they were building that fight for a long time. They fought, Cotto had the middleweight title, but they fought, like, he never fought at technically 160. It was like a catch weight of like 157 or 156. And they fought at Madison Square Garden in New York. Sergio Martinez versus Miguel Cotto for the middleweight title at a catch weight of 156, 157, which was supposed to be an excellent fight. But then on the night of the event, Sergio Martinez has this, like, knee brace, and the fight just ended. Like, it wasn't even a fight. It was a horrible event because Martinez was injured, but he just didn't want to say anything. He wanted to go through with it. I mean, it was a big payday. It was a lot of eyeballs. It was a big event. You're getting the Cotto money. At that time, Cotto was one of the big stars. How many times have we seen this before where these fighters, they'll proceed? And I'm not saying an aneurysm is the same as like a knee injury and all that, but, like, it's still an issue. There's been other times, like, I mean, who knows? Maybe if this is true, it's not like we haven't seen this in boxing before where these fighters and their teams, like, hey, you got cleared. It's fine. The commission approved it. Like, this doctor said you're good. Like, let's just get it. Like, we'll get the, we need the money. We need the payday. We want the payday. We want the exposure. This will get you more opportunities, even if you lose. Whether you win or lose, they'll get more opportunities in the future. Because, like, oh, I was in the ring with Virgil Ortiz, who's a big player right now. Like, moving up, still trying to get a world title. There's also that factor, because it's not like there's no pattern here. There hasn't been a track record of this happening in boxing. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a strange situation, and when we're recording, like, pretty much as it's happening. So, as you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this later on this week or in 2 weeks, or you listen to this a month from now, there's obviously going to be more information. It seems like there's going to be more information. I feel like the Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to probably release a statement tomorrow. Kind of try to tackle this from a PR standpoint, but yeah, this is just a bizarre situation, man. This is a bizarre situation. The main promoter of the event is saying one thing, denying one thing, and then the referee, who's a veteran referee in the sport of boxing, is saying another thing. And it's not like it's like a little detail, like, hey, there was no padding, or not padding, but it's not like it's like a minor detail. This is a significant, like, detail of this fight that's surrounding this event. This is very significant because you're right. Like, if 2 doctors said he had it and 1 doctor cleared him, and they let him fight, that's very, very interesting. I don't know, man. This is like I said, like, this is How many shows have we done? 300 or something. If you kind of put all the bonuses and everything together, we've done over 300 some shows since 2018. When we started this show 2018. This is one of the most like bizarre situations that we've covered here on the show since we started doing the show like 5-6 years ago. I just can't wrap my head around it. I really can't. So you think this that Tony Weeks is lying? Let's just put a bow on it. You think that Tony Weeks, it's not a true statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Nevada Commission and hopefully his team, I think they would have stopped it if they had any common sense. If it was my, friend, son, family member who's been told they have an aneurysm and I'm working their corner or something like that, I'd be like, hey, you're not fighting, dude. Like at the end of the day, 50 grand, 100 grand, or your, potentially your career, your life, having a regular day in, day out like life because of, something could drastically happen to you whilst you're in there against someone as heavy handed as Virgil. It's not worth 50.
And who had the information prior? Like if, let's just say Tony Weeks is telling the truth. Let's just play that game. Who had the information prior? Generally, it would be the promoter, right? The promoter and the other camp, which is Virgil Ortiz, and the commission, right? That's who would have the information. So if he's telling the truth, how boxing generally works, there's a pattern. Like we've talked to a bunch of people in the California Commission, and we're pretty well versed in the details of the California Commission. So the other camp knows, the commission knows, the promoters know. So if Tony Weeks is telling the truth, whether it's if it was a real post that he put out there and it is true, which we don't know if that was a real post or not. Maybe it was a fake account. Who knows? But if it is true, there's a very, very highly likely chance, very, very highly likely that Golden Boy knew, Virgil Ortiz's camp knew, and the commission all knew. Right?
Yeah, but
so is it? Do they share the blame? I
think it's one of those things where, like, to me, if you were trying to,
luckily Lawson's okay too. Luckily nothing happened.
Like hypothetically, like if you were trying to sneak through a fight like that, like okay, the last doctor cleared him. He's good to fight. It's too late in the day to find another opponent. Let's just get this fight on. But then if it got out that the camp knew, other people knew, the referees know, it's kind of like, okay, like this has got too far. Too many people know. Like we can't now let him fight. That's where you'd like to think something like that would happen. But I just, maybe I'm naive, but I would like to think that someone as big as the Nevada State Athletic Commission wouldn't allow a fight like that to go ahead. When, for example, John Jones, UFC, when he tested positive for like a nanogram of, a steroid, which supposedly hadn't left his system, but it was such a minute amount. The Nevada State Athletic Commission said, no, you cannot fight. And they moved the entire card to California. That's how strict they normally are. So to say that they're going to allow someone to fight with potentially an aneurysm, like 2 out of 3 scans showed that.
Pretty nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, this is unfolding as we're recording, and there's going to be more information. We're assuming it's highly likely that the Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to release some type of statement this week, because this is a very, very significant situation that I'm assuming they're going to address. So, because this is insane if this is true. If Tony Weeks' post is true, if that's a real account or whatever, this is very, very intriguing. So, we're just going to be watching from the sidelines and giving our take on it here in the crazy world of boxing. This was also Virgil Ortiz's first fight back with Robert Garcia. So he's back with Robert Garcia, which it's unfortunate that he left before. Luckily, he's still undefeated. But him and Robert Garcia, they fit, man. They fit. He's back with the trainer he needs to be, who's like, he's got all his big wins with. With Robert Garcia, Ortiz is 10 times more dangerous. So, he's going to get it. He obviously gets good work there at the Robert Garcia Academy gym in Riverside, California. So that's good. And then Ortiz called out Tim Tszyu after the fight. And then Golden Boy Promotions owner, Oscar De La Hoya, said that Ortiz is willing to go to Australia for that fight. How likely do you think that fight could happen? Tim Tszyu would say, okay, let's do it.
Unfortunately, I think it's down to the PBC as usual. Are they going to share their toys?
No, that's true. But there's also, Australia has their own. Australia is in a unique situation, just like Japan, where you can make money down there and they have their own TV contracts and their own, partnerships. So I feel like it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. It's not, because of it's Australia.
Fingers crossed. I hope they do it. I think it's a great fight. Me and you have been big fans of Virgil for the longest time. I remember I saw him for the first time in Joel Diaz's gym many years ago when he was in there, just turned pro, and he was working with Joel, and you could just see how heavy-handed he was and such a nice guy to chat to, super down to earth, and just he's continuing that knockout streak. And like you said, I think it really is a perfect fix with him and Robert Garcia. I think, do you think it's wrong to say anybody with that stereotypical Mexican style really suits that gym? Would there be wrong to say that?
No, I'm not offended.
It just seems that way, right? He's a very attack-minded coach, isn't he? I would say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think anybody that has that style, I think, really suits that. And then just the sparring, how many times have we said that? The sparring in that gym is just freaking ruthless.
Unbelievable.
So, when you're getting that in essentially practice and then you get in the ring, it's, you can't really go wrong as long as you're not doing too many rounds, as long as you're being clever, making sure that you're wearing big gloves and, a head guard. You're not being too brave for your own good and just taking, punishment, in practice that you should really be taking like in an actual fight when you're getting paid. But yeah, I think the matchup's really, really good. I hope we get to see that. I hope, they can make it with PBC. And I think at 154, eventually when they decide to break the titles away from Charlo,
it should be now. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why they're waiting.
I'd like to think that we've got some big fights with Virgil, and I think he can do one at 154. It's not super stacked, really, is it?
No, he could do well there. Yeah, Ortiz, I think, could do well there. It's unfortunate that he was at 147 for so long, but it's because Crawford and Spence had all the titles, they were all on PBC, so it's just an unfortunate situation for everybody outside that little bubble. And the co-main event of this DAZN Las Vegas card, Ismael Barroso gets an upset win, I guess some people want, if you want to call it that, in the first round, as he gets the stoppage victory over the debuting Golden Boy Promotions O'Hara Davies, who takes the third loss of his career. Barroso gets the interim super lightweight title for the WBA. Barroso, like we talked about, was stopped by Rolly Romero last year in a horrible stoppage, which also involved Tony Weeks. And Barroso was, he's 40 years old? He's older. And he obviously shows he can fight, So he beat the debuting O'Hara Davies. Is it Davies or Davis? Davies, right?
O'Hara Davis.
Is it Davis? Okay, O'Hara Davis. Sorry. I mean, Barroso. He's now technically the mandatory for Rolly Romero again, and I don't even want to get into this. I'm just going to touch on it. But Ryan Garcia called out Devin Haney. Then Devin Haney responds, and then they both said, "Let's make the fight." And Golden Boy Promotion says, De La Hoya said, "Oh, let's make the fight. Let's just make the Haney fight." And then Ryan Garcia goes running with Floyd Mayweather, is hanging out with Floyd Mayweather and talking to the camera, whoever's interviewing them. And then soon after, he posts that he wants to fight Rolly Romero and not Devin Haney. And then he says that Haney can't draw. He only sold 30,000 pay-per-view buys. Yeah, we know that Ryan Garcia is a lot more popular than Devin Haney, but Ryan Garcia had his first pay-per-view fight with one of the biggest stars in the sport. And Some people say that Ryan probably brought a lot of those buys, which I agree with. But Davis has his own following too. So Gervonta Davis is what I'm talking about. And I don't know. That's another topic. Ryan Garcia is just he's a different guy, man. He's a different guy with his personality, and then announcing that he just had a baby, and then like right after, within an hour, he announces that he got a divorce from the mother of his child.
On the same day, he does the
on the same day. The posts were within an hour of each other. And then he says, "I want you, please respect my privacy." Like, come on, kid. Like, come on, kid. What's going on over there? So Barroso, hey, more power to him, man. I hope he gets the Rolly Romero fight, and I hope he gets his revenge.
Beautiful setup for the finish. Beautiful setup.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm pulling for the guy, man. He's got that underdog story behind him now. You know, people were like talking about a meme, how he looks way older, finding grandpa, this, and that. I'm pulling for him, man. I hope he gets a fight against Rolly Romero, and he beats Rolly Romero and gets that title and just screws up all these plans. You know, but doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Seems like Ryan and Rolly's going to happen. WBA is going to let that happen. More money for WBA's pocket because it's a bigger fight. That's how the business works, right?
Unfortunately, yeah, you are correct. But you hopefully they at least give him some step aside money or something like that. The guy's like 40 years old. He doesn't really want to be waiting another 6 months to 12 months, you know, for his title shot. And I think, like we touched on before, you know, with, you know, referee Weeks kind of finishing the original fight, you know, early between, you know, Barroso and Rolly. I think the right person won on the night, right? You know, I think he really deserved to be in there anyway against Rolly, and beautiful setup. He kind of like threw kind of like a lazy, you know, punch to Davis's stomach, which kind of tempted Davis to come in. He comes in, he kind of turns the shoulder a little bit, kind of rides to get away from the punch, and then boom, big left hook.
Right.
Davis was just kind of like out on his feet. Beautiful setup, I thought. And yeah, Barroso kind of having a, you know, purple patch, isn't he, at the end of his career at 40 years old? So
yeah. He's trying to get, it's working for him, man. He's you got to give him the credit. You got to give it to him, you know.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good to see because he's been on a few Golden Boy cards. I remember me and you seeing him years ago against Fidel Maldonado Jr. at Fantasy Springs when he won that fight. So yeah, it's good to see. You know, disappointing for Harvard Davis, but I always did kind of wonder, like, he kind of got to that position fighting a whole host of nobodies.
How likely do you think that we see Ryan Garcia versus Barroso next?
Problem about that is obviously, you know, Ryan's kryptonite is probably heavy-handed punches, right? That would be.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
I think we'll probably see the Rolly fight because that's a winnable fight for him. Probably sells. There'll be a lot of smack talk and stuff. He'll probably do decent pay-per-view numbers, and then I think that's the kind of route that he'll go down. You know,
that's the interesting part, man. Like, if he fights somebody like Rolly, because Rolly's not really like, his mouth is what like helps him sell himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he just happens to have a WBA title. You know, he's a title holder. But and I think we've said it before, but you know, we've asked Romero for interviews in the past, and they've like his team has asked us for money, so we're not going to pay you to be a guest. You know, they respond to us asking for payment. So, you know, just throwing that out there. But I can see Ryan. I think he could beat Barroso. I think he could beat both of them, honestly. But yeah, this is a crazy situation, man. Barroso loses a fight in a controversial fashion last year to Rolly Romero, and then he fights again against debuting Golden Boy Promotions fighter O'Hara Davis, who, you know, had all this hype behind him. Golden Boy new signee. He loses his debut. Barroso gets his revenge. Now he's back in the driver's seat again to get the shot. What a strange situation, man. What a strange situation for an already strange night of boxing. And also making his Golden Boy Promotions debut, Arnold Barboza Jr. remains undefeated at 29-0. Barboza obviously used to be with Top Rank for many years. now is with Golden Boy Promotions as he gets the victory over Ndongeni. Hey, I hope Barboza can get a title shot soon, man. It feels like he's almost 30-0, and he really hasn't had that significant opponent across the ring from him. So, I know he went after, like, he started talking to Teofimo Lopez after the fight or maybe fight week. I think it was after the fight, and trying to see what, talk to him and get a fight going. I don't know, man. I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, I like Barboza. Give him a shot. He's almost 30-0.
Jose Ramirez as well was there, wasn't he? He was announced by Oscar as a new signing. So
yeah, Jose Ramirez was another top-ranked product. Has now signed with Golden Boy. So put Barboza and Ramirez together. Maybe that's what they're going for. You have think of it like this, man. You have Ryan Garcia. You have Ryan Garcia at 140. You have Jose Ramirez at 140. You have Arnold Barboza at 140. Within the same promotion. You don't think Ramirez and Barboza see that? Like, oh, dang. Yeah, Garcia's over here. That means Golden Boy really want to make the fight. Like, it's easier to make the fight. But it's also like, Ryan's already shown that, like, when he doesn't want to do something, he just goes and complains on social media, and he makes a big old stink about it. So it is what it is. But hey, you got to think about it. These, recent signees for Golden Boy Promotions, you got to give it to them, man.
Thinking that kind of like PBC route where they see a strong division, so they just kind of throw, all the money at it, so they could just do like a round robin, and then it's done very well for the PBC. Obviously, they did it at the 147, and obviously Oscar's seeing the big names and the potential at the 140. So he's gone down there, and hopefully he does what he says he does, and we'll just see like a round robin because you've also got Devin Haney, you've got Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor, maybe, and all those guys. Obviously, they're with different promotions, but hopefully we can just see, kind of like a World Boxing Super Series, I guess, of all those guys just facing each other until we see someone come out on top. I mean, yeah, we can dream, right?
Yeah. Hey, yeah, this is cool, man. I mean, Ramirez and Barboza, especially Ramirez, did the whole thing with Top Rank where they fought. He even fought on DAZN once against Maurice Hooker. That was a great fight. Now he comes over to Golden Boy. Maybe we can see a Ryan fight this year, which, hey, I would love it, man. I like Jose Ramirez. Put him against Ryan. I think that's a great fight. And Ramirez I think Ramirez would be the favorite, but we will see. And also on the card, Raul Curiel remains undefeated at 14-0 as he gets the 8th round TK over Elias Diaz, who takes the second loss of his career. So Curiel, they're still building him up, trying to get him.
Isn't it? Slowly.
It feels like it's very, very slow, huh? It does feel like that.
Because remember last time, I think me and you saw him at Commerce.
Yeah. He was the main event, I think, right? Yeah. I mean, it does feel like a little bit slow, but who knows? New year. Let's see how many times he fights this year. I would say at least 4 times. I would think. Moving on to fight preview this upcoming Saturday, the 13th of January, from Quebec City in Quebec, Canada, on ESPN Plus for the IBF, WBC, and WBO light heavyweight championship. Artur Beterbiev, 19-0, goes up against Callum Smith, 29-1. What do you think about this fight?
I was watching a lot of the previews this morning, and I'm not like everybody else, I guess. I don't really see Callum Smith having a chance. I know a lot of the Brits are saying, he's moving up, the power's going to go with him and stuff like that. He's not really got any notable big wins on his resume. And
Beterbiev hasn't shown that he's slowing down either.
No, not really. And I know people are saying that he is, but I've not seen it too much. And obviously, we do know that with him being very open and going for the big shots, he has been dropped before. But
right.
He'd always got back up and won by knockout.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, so I don't, and if you think about what Beterbiev does, he kind of like slowly, methodically beats you down. Canelo managed to do that to Callum Smith, and Canelo's substantially smaller. So just imagine someone of Artur Beterbiev's size doing that to you. I think it'll be very similar. I think Beterbiev will just beat him down, and at certain points in that fight, when you watch Callum Smith against Canelo, he was just covering up. He didn't even really throw back. That's how much.
He also hurt his arm in that because Canelo was just attacking that arm.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think Beterbiev is a bigger version of what Canelo did that night. And I think Beterbiev just grinds him down and probably stops him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Beterbiev comes out the victor this Saturday in a stoppage win. So, hopefully it's a good fight, though. Hopefully we're wrong.
I honestly do think, and this is coming from someone who is British, I think he's
You are? I didn't know you were British.
Man, I'll hide it well.
You hide it so well. You hide it so well. But yeah, I hope it's a great fight. And Callum Smith's only loss is against Canelo Alvarez too.
And if Beterbiev wins, it leads to the fight we all want, right?
Dimitri Bivol. Yeah, and I think that's a great fight. I think Bivol. I'd probably lean towards Bivol.
That would be an interesting one, depending on how he looks in this performance. Like, has he aged a little bit, or is he still the monster that he was? Because it's one of those. Bivol's got to be perfect for 12 rounds, and Beterbiev just has to be kind of perfect for that 1 second, right? Because he's so
like Wilder. Yeah, it's like a
similar
Wilder,
sort of thing.
Ryan Garcia,
that sort of power,
right? No,
and it would be another undisputed.
Yeah. We're getting spoiled the last couple of years with undisputed fights, so we can't complain. We've been complaining about it for so many years. We've been getting them a lot. So, kudos to boxing for at least giving us that the last couple of years or so. In the co-main event, Jason Maloney, 26-2, goes up against Saul Sanchez, 20-2, for the WBO Bantamweight Championship of the World. So one of the Maloney twins returns in an ESPN Plus fight. And also on the card, Christian and Billy, 25-0 undefeated, goes up against Rohan Murdoch, 27-2. What do you think about this fight?
Well, Billy looks a good prospect. I think I'd like to see him,
I think he's still a prospect at 25-0?
Yeah, I was still kind of class him as one. He said had a lot of fights, but
would you call Arnold Barboza a prospect then?
Probably
because if you're calling this guy 25-0 a prospect, Barboza is 28-0 as of this past weekend.
What's Barboza? 30? How old is he?
I think so. Yeah,
probably not just due to the fact of his age. I think Billy's a little bit younger, even though he's had so many fights. A lot of them have kind of been like more regional. I'd like to see him come over to the US and do some fights, more this side against some bigger name opponents. Because so far, I think he's looked really good, and I back him to win against Murdoch this night. Top 3 fights of this card are pretty good on ESPN Plus.
Yeah. It's got a pretty good matchups here. So hopefully they all pan out. Nobody misses weight and all that. It all works out and everything. News and notes section of this week's episode of the last round podcast. Your favorite fighter and mine, Mike. Heavyweight boxer Jarrell Miller was arrested last week in Hollywood, Florida. Not Hollywood, California, Hollywood, Florida, and charged with carjacking without a firearm, carjacking without a firearm or weapon, and burglary with assault or battery, according to the local sheriff's office there in Hollywood, Florida. He literally just fought in Saudi Arabia on the Day of Reckoning card, so I wonder, I don't even know what to say about this. I do not know what to say about this. I don't.
It's kind of strange that from what I've read, it looks like they towed his car because he hadn't paid. So he went to the dealership and pretty much just took the car back. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, if you owe them money, you've just fought in Saudi. So surely the payday there, from what everyone was saying, the Saudis are just throwing around good checks. So why would you not just settle up what you owe, take the car back legally and drive your ass home? But, he decided to just throw someone to the floor, according to what I read, grabbed the keys and then just took off with, his girlfriend or a girl in the car. So it had a tracker.
Nuts, man. This is nuts.
Yeah, it had a tracker inside, which the police just followed the tracker and then just arrested him. So, yeah, kind of obviously a crazy moment for Jarrell Miller. I don't know. Maybe the Saudis aren't paying what we think they are, I guess.
I guess not. And also Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, former UFC heavyweight champion, who coming off his first professional boxing match against Tyson Fury, have struck a deal for a boxing match in Saudi Arabia again. It was already confirmed by Matchroom, by Saudi Arabia, their government, and all that, for reportedly in March Are we really surprised about this? I'm not really surprised about this. I mean,
no. After obviously when Deontay Wilder lost, and then Eddie and
besides Tyson Fury, Ngannou is probably the next big box office that you can make for Anthony Joshua, right? I mean, they wanted Wilder, but if you can't make Fury after, you might as well go Ngannou.
Yeah, because you probably think that the Wilder fight, even though he lost recently, he's still got that knockout power. Where Ngannou, I think a lot of people are just putting it down to the fact that Tyson Fury thought it was going to be an easy night's work and did literally zero training from what people are saying.
Supposedly.
Yeah, so I think fighting Ngannou, it's probably going to do good numbers, really good payday for him, and could potentially be maybe an easy night's work. After we've kind of already seen him fight once. You've now got a little bit of video to work off, and hopefully AJ doesn't take it lightly after seeing what Ngannou managed to do against Tyson Fury.
Right,
so could be win-win for him. I mean, if he does beat Ngannou, then hopefully we then see him face the winner of Usyk or Tyson Fury. But I believe that is actually scheduled for a 2-fight deal, so it could be towards the end of the year, maybe even 2025.
It'd probably be 2025.
Got flipping boxing, dude. Flipping boxing.
It's 2025. You're saying it like you're like, hopefully this. Come on. Yeah. We've been in this long enough to know it's 2025.
Sadly, you're right, Daniel. Sadly, you are.
There's nothing else there. But you got to give it to Francis Ngannou. Left the UFC. Everybody thought he was crazy. Fought Tyson Fury a big payday. He's about to fight AJ for a big payday. Arguably the two biggest moneymakers the two biggest moneymakers in the heavyweight division. Making a boatload of money.
Where we've waited for how long for all these people to fight each other, and he come and does the two biggest names in 2 fights.
He literally did. Yeah. He's literally back to his first 2 fights as a professional boxer. He's a professional fighter, but as a professional boxer, he's fighting the 2 biggest heavyweights with the most popular heavyweights back-to-back fights. So that's insane, man. That's insane. You got to give it to him, man. You got to give it to him. He went on his own, leaving the UFC, the machine, and made a boatload of cash back-to-back fights like this.
He's probably going to do anywhere between 20 to 40 million in those 2 fights.
Probably.
So his kids' life, and maybe even their kids' lives up.
Saudi Arabia is paying, man. Saudi Arabia is paying, and other fighters are going to see this from mixed martial arts. Conor McGregor did it. He still wants to fight Pacquiao. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy. But once again, guys, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Last Round Podcast. Happy 2024. Happy New Year. Hopefully it's already been a crazy first week or 2 weeks of boxing, and we just opened up a new year. So if this is what we have in store for the rest of the year in this sport, it's going to be a long year of boxing news and analysis and everything. Everything's going to pop up. So we will see. But before we sign off, once again, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing the British card with Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer headlining. So from my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round